Welcome to Rais and Ruckus Know-How and Tips.
Hi, my name is Clint. I'm with Rais and Ruckus Calls, and my specialty is turkey hunting. So we're here to talk about a little bit of late season calling today. I got the slate call here. It's got double sided with the glass on one side, and it's got the slate on the other. Slate is my favorite just because it's a little bit softer, but that glass you can get a little bit louder with it. Just a great call. You can mix things up. You know, the bird a little farther off, you can swap over to the glass, call a little bit louder where he can hear you, or when he's getting a little closer, you can swap over to the slate. Just ease it down a little bit, call a little softer, do some clucking and some purring, raking the leaves, stuff like that. And I also have a box call here. This is one of the Rais Ruckus double-sided box calls. It's got the artwork on the top. I use this earlier in the season and early in the mornings. If you got a bird a long ways off, it's a good way to call to him. You know, they can hear it a long ways. You can do some loud calling. You can get aggressive on it, and you can also call soft on it. So, you know, this is always a good call for the whole year. Just the same as the slate call is, but a little later in the season, the bird seems like they get a little bit less vocal, a little quieter, and that's why I like the slate call later in the season. You can kind of tone it down a little bit, just get a little bit quieter, and I like to give them a few little clucks, and then I'll give them a yelp. And when I yelp, I draw little circles, and I start out small, and they get just a little bit bigger. And a lot of times I like to give them a little cluck before I yelp, just one or two. And I'll also do some clucking and purring. Like I was saying, if you add that raking in the leaves with your hand to the clucking and purring, it sounds a lot like a hen that's over there feeding, and that's can prove to be a deadly combination. That bird hear that raking in the leaves, and he gets comfortable. He knows there's a hen over there, and he'll come in to check her out. Now this glass has got just a little bit more rasp, and it can be just a little bit louder. And I like the yelp on the glass a little bit better, but I love the slate for the clucking and purring. And here's what the glass sounds like. That's just a sweet sounding call as well. That's what I love about this call. You can call on one side and swap it over and call on the other. It just depends on what you like a little better and how far the bird is and which one he's liking a little better. But later in the season, don't be afraid to set up and call and sit for a while. A lot of times birds they'll start leaving their hens later in the mornings and into the afternoon. And if you're there and you're patient, you know, it's just a matter of time before he decides to come on in. May not be today or tomorrow, but you know, if you put in the time and you're willing to hunt and stay there and sit and call, they'll come in. And just walk and call a little bit too. You can walk and find new areas where there may have been some birds that you didn't know about, or maybe you can find some scratchings or some tracks somewhere that you didn't know about. And just set up and call if you find a place like that. Just set and call real soft, maybe stay for an hour, 2 hours. And if you don't hear anything or don't see anything, just get up and keep on moving. Try to find another spot and sit and call. That's a good way to learn the land that you're hunting, and a good way to find birds that you may not have known were there. And later on into the afternoon, you never know. You may come walking down there and call, and he'll gobble right there in front of you and come right in on a string. But you know, you never know until you get out there and look for him. A lot of hunters like to hunt in the morning, and if they don't hear any birds gobbling or hear very little gobbling, they get kind of discouraged and get ready to go back to the house after an hour or two. But don't forget, later in the morning, the birds start to roam a little bit, and it's a good time when they get away from their hens to call one in. So get you a nice call that you're comfortable with. I would really prefer these because it's got both sides. You can swap it up. There's a lot of diversity in your calling if you want to throw it in there. And just get comfortable in your calls when you start. Practice, 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 and then practice a little bit more. It's easy to get nervous and want to get in a rush when you get that bird gobbling in there, or if you see a bird and you know he's coming in. It's easy to get nervous, so as comfortable with your calls as possible, the better. And it'll help you out so much more, and that's for all season. You know, you always want to be comfortable with your calls. But just find some calls that you're comfortable with, call on them, try different things, and develop a way that you like to call that you're comfortable with. I prefer the cluck before I yelp. I like to do some clucking and some purring while scratching the leaves, but you can also find other ways that work for you. And just get out there and hunt, and don't be afraid to sit for a few hours.
Clint, I noticed that you had a spot on that glass that was kind of roughed up. How is it that you go about doing that?
Well, you can take one of the stones and get it pretty rough, but what I like to do is I keep a little 3M pad in my vest with me, and then you can just use that to scrape and kind of get the call the way you want it. And the 3M pad isn't quite as abrasive as the stone is, and I like that. It makes for a little bit of a softer call. And I also have little spots on, even in the scratched up part, that I prefer. I like to call on the right side of this one. But you can call on each side of it, it just depends. So even once you get your call, try it in different spots. Try right up there next to the edge. Try over the other side, try in the dead center. And see which part of the call you prefer better. Sometimes it sounds a little better on one side than it does the other. Try holding your striker different ways. Try holding it at different angles. Try rotating it different ways. There's a lot of things that go into it. Don't be afraid to play your call and to learn it and figure out which way is the best for you. Because there's so many different ways to call, and whichever way you're the most comfortable with is going to be the best. So just practice with it and get comfortable with it. Try different things. And with a mouth call, what I like to do is I'll keep a call in my truck, and when I'm going down the road, sometimes I'll just call going down the road, do some yelp, try some clucks. And another thing that you can do to learn your mouth call is try to sing a song on the radio with it. It's going to sound goofy as heck, so I wouldn't recommend doing it around anybody else. But it's just a good way to learn the call and learn to make different sounds with it. And that's just the best way to get comfortable with them, is just practicing.
I noticed what you're holding there is a rosewood call with glass on the top and slate on the bottom. Does Rais Ruckus make any other calls than that one?
They make several calls. You can get all kinds of stuff, and you can get all the artwork on them. Whatever you want, Tim can do it for you. And he's also started making this other call. I got one with some feathers of a bird I killed this year. It's got the glass on the side and it has the feathers from my turkey in it. And he also did the wood burning art. He has the length of the beard on there and the length of the spurs, and he has the date that I killed him. And he also has a verse that I chose to go on it. There's just so many things that Tim can do, and they all look great. He has different finishes that he does on them. And it's just, you can get anything made that you might like. And I really like the one with the feathers in it. It's just a kind of a custom look and kind of I guess you could say kind of like an heirloom. You know, I can keep that and I'll pass it down to my boy one day. And you know, I got the feathers in there from the bird that I shot and got the date and everything, that way I can remember it. It's just a really cool piece to have, and I've been thinking on it. I'm probably just going to use this one to call and keep the other one and not mess up the glass on it where you can see the feathers in there real good because it looks so good. And it's still got the slate on the other side, and I'm just going to use the slate to call. It's just a jam-up call, and he's got all kinds of stuff. He can do different artwork on your box calls for you and things like that. It's just really cool work that he does, and you really got to see it to appreciate it. So check out his website and all, and just you'll be amazed at some of the stuff he comes up with. It's really awesome. Check out his duck calls and all too. He's got some duck calls that have the geese on them or the ducks on them. That's what I really like. I really love the artwork on them. And just something, if you're proud to show it off and you get comfortable with it and you can call with it, there's no telling what you're going to call in. A little bit of confidence with your call goes a long way.
Here's the call that we were talking about that Tim made for me. It's got my feathers in it from the turkey I killed this year, and as you can see, it's got a real pretty finish on it. And then on the back, he's got the artwork. It's got the date of the kill, got the length of the beard and the spurs. It's got the verse that I picked out for it, and it's got the slate on it. Just a really good looking call.
I'd like to thank you for visiting Rais Ruckus Know-How and Tips. If you'd like to learn more about using our calls like the featured pro staff member, please visit us on our Facebook page or at RaisARuckus.com. Remember, when you are using a Rais Ruckus call, all that's left to do is pull the trigger.